Weather's changing, so it's time to switch gears from cars and put in a gutter system on the roof and a French drain in the ground. We've been dealing with moisture in the back corner of this house, so we need to get a French drain in here. Water kind of pools between this side of the house and from the retaining wall over here. This is the lowest part of our property, so we're going to put a French drain here and run it on out to the front of the house. Not only does this retaining wall end up causing a lot of water to pool back behind the house, the roof also ends up just pouring straight down into the same area. So we're going to put this gutter up. I'm quite surprised at how easy it was, so I'll show you how I did that. Well, that is loud. Holy guacamole. I'm using this super long level and making sure that the bubble is hitting the first tick mark on the level. The first tick mark actually means it's a 2% grade or a 1/4 inch slope per foot. That was surprisingly easy. I found that these clamps are super useful for holding stuff in place while I climb around the ladder and line everything up. This is definitely not what I would consider the ideal order of operations. In the future, at least for a run this small, I would go and build it on the ground and then come and put it on the roof. But we work with what we have. So we're gonna get the seam strap aligned and we'll rivet it down all the way around. Let's get this in here. There we go. Okay, now we go and do this side. I'm trying to do it kind of like you would putting tires on a vehicle. So if I did the front and then I did the back, there'd be a huge gap around the middle. So I'm going to do here, and then I'll probably do one in the bottom. Hopefully it doesn't link too bad. Afterwards, we'll come back with a sealant that goes over the top. And now, the two are definitely connected. Sweet. It's amazing how much gunk falls into this just in a very, very short period of time. Welcome to my work table. I've decided for safety and simplicity's sake, I'm gonna build the downspout chunk on the table. So all I have to do is attach it to the gutter I've already put up. On the next chunk, I will build it all on the table. It's felt a little unsafe the way I've been doing it, so I'm trying my best to be as safe as possible. I'm learning a lot as I go. Now I should be able to just slide it in place and start riveting up top. All right, that looks awesome. One thing I found when doing the first run is that it's really hard to assemble in place. So for this second chunk on the lower part of the roof, I'm assembling the whole thing out here on the ground and then lifting it up in place as one unit. This is where the real work begins, digging for the French drain. I ended up getting this trench digging shovel, and my goodness, was it the best tool for this job. Well, I'd say the trench shovel was probably the second best tool. This pickaxe did the most work out of everything. We're aiming for a foot here, absolute minimum 8 inches. So we're getting there. This trench digging shovel is nice and narrow so that I can dig exactly what I need and not put in more effort than I have to. So what we decided, cost-wise, is we're only going to do the French drain part, the part with the holes, for the 10-foot chunk right here. That's to get all that water coming out of the wall, and that pools back there, out to the front of the house. The rest of this chunk will be complete tube with an opening for the drains to come down, and that'll go into the tube. And our plan is to kick it out under these rocks, so they're protected from being driven on. We don't run over it on the driveway, and we have a pretty good straight shot out to the road over there. But I got it close to as deep as it needs to be here, and as deep as it needs to be there, and now I can work to connect the two and then start the long downhill trench. You might be wondering why I'm doing this all by hand, and well, that's because I know that the sewage pipe comes out somewhere along this wall, and I don't have any idea where our water main comes in. We're in a communal water district, so it's not so easy to just ask the city for where the water is coming in. All right, so I'd say we're about 3/4 of the way done. This is 20 of the 30 feet, plus a little extra. So I think we're about 3/4 of the way done. Next up, I think I'm going to start to figure out the French drain side, and then we have to grade the whole thing. All right, so we got the whole trench dug. Using the string in a level, we're able to tell that it has a slight downhill slope. As you can see, we ended up having to dig much deeper right here since this is the highest part of the run, and it gets fairly shallow there at the end. So the next thing that's to do is to finish laying out all the pipe. I've got a big chunk of 10-foot 3-inch PVC to replace some of these little bits and odds with, and then we'll start building the French drain. Let's go and get this in. And we could start laying gravel. And then the gravel will help us create the slope we need. And then we can backfill it. And it'll look all good, like it's never been touched before. We'll put a rock on the fabric on each side over here. Kind of get it to calm down. Okay, so we've got our little burrito. Let's start adding gravel. There are plenty of explanations online how a French drain works, but in general, you use this garden fabric to keep the dirt and mud out but let the water through. And then you use this gravel here to continue letting the water through, but it kind of acts as a filter to prevent too much mud from getting into your drain pipe. All right, so we're going to use some of this silicone sealing type glue and just glue this end cap on so it doesn't fall off. We'll use that at a few other places because we're gluing this HDPE to PVC, and who knows if that will work, what glue works on that. So this is a much simpler way to do it. And I'm putting this on because, well, to be honest, the gravel I got is too small, and these would just run down through these holes. So this will help keep the gravel at bay, and the gravel helps keep the dirt at bay. And all in all, everything should be kept at bay. All right, let's see and make sure that it's actually going downhill. And then as you notice this drain pipe on the side here, it has a bunch of holes drilled in. You actually put the holes down. If you put them up, the water level actually has to get above the pipe before it starts draining. All right, my burrito is done. If you're finding this video at all useful or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up or consider subscribing. We've got the French drain side already mostly filled in. It'll probably level as water gets it. And now we're starting to fill in the rest of this. I've leveled it all. I've got an inlet and a clean out, whichever you want to call it, but an inlet for the gutters we put up. And now we're running it on out. It gets really shallow right here, but we're gonna hide it under the rocks and we should be fine. So I'm trying to compact this specific area down. This is where, if any change happens, it's gonna mess up the rest of the incline. And then it also protects the T we put in. So this should give us pretty good end result by making sure that this gets filled in. Let's test it and make sure that it's mostly downhill. I know that it might not be 100% downhill, but let's hope that it's mostly downhill, you know? Let's see if it's coming out the front. Coming down. All right, that is 3 for 3 of these indestructible hoses. I'm never buying one of these again. That one just exploded. It's running out. It's a little bit low. I assume if we get a lot of rain, it will kind of clear itself out. I am going to put a grate right there, and then that'll keep dirt from going back in, hopefully. Our big rainstorm turned out to be not so big, but it's not really enough to cause the drain to get past its hump. But we get to see that the cutter is doing its job. I wasn't sure how this one would do since it's not as slanted as I would like, but it's generally working pretty well. And then this side's running down, getting thicker. Seems to be working well. I'll give you an update later when it starts to possibly rain a little bit harder. Who knows? Thanks for watching.